The subject that I was given is being light to the world in my capacity as a person who gives hospitality. There are many cultures that put an emphasis on the tradition of sharing bread and salt as a sign of hospitality and welcoming strangers. I grew up with that tradition, and I brought today a homemade loaf of bread and some salt. This is a symbol of sharing meals together. And the number of times that we have had bread and salt as a symbol, big meals, small meals, big parties, small parties, and we've shared round our table many, many a meal. And this is the symbol. In Lebanon, they call it في خبز وملح بيناتنا. I don't know if any of you here know Arabic. I know Christy does. في خبز وملح بيناتنا. It means there is bread and salt between us. And once you've had bread and salt, it means you've had fellowship, you've shared life together. And in Egyptian Arabic, they call bread aish. And aish means life. The word aish is to live. So aish means life. And we share life together, which is what hospitality is all about. And you know, the Slavic countries, and I don't know, Elena, you can correct me, in Russia too, they put emphasis on bread. Is that right? So if you go to a new home, you take bread and salt. Bread so that you never go hungry, and salt so you can have flavor to your life. You add flavor to your life. And the Bible talks a lot about images of salt and bread in so many places. And this is what we are about today. We are sharing life together. This is simply what hospitality is. Hospitality is simply an opportunity to show love and care. And the heart of hospitality is when people leave your home, they should feel better about themselves than about you. Hospitality is about loving others well, whenever and wherever the opportunity presents itself. So here are a few thoughts from offering hospitality for many, many years. Christian hospitality is not about entertaining. The world entertains, we Christians give hospitality. My husband and I have been married 41 years. We just clocked that in August this year. And we have given hospitality in every home we have lived in. And we've lived in many countries, in many different homes. And Derek and I put a great emphasis that what we do is giving hospitality. The world entertains, Christians give hospitality. Giving hospitality is opening your home, allowing people to share what you have, letting their hair down. Entertaining is impressing people. That's what the world does. They invite you to their beautiful homes. They put on a lavish meal, all the different wines for every single course that they offer you, and that is entertaining. And entertaining expects to be invited back. When we give hospitality, we don't expect to be invited back. We give it because this is something that we want to do, and we want to love people to Jesus. Christian hospitality is not about showing others what wonderful cooks we are. And it's okay to be a good cook. But that's not what it is. It's about sharing what we have. Very early on in my life, I did a lot of entertaining, okay? And I would cook 2 or 3 courses. I'd have for every course maybe 2 or 3 choices. And then people would say to me, "Oh, but we can never invite you back." And I thought, okay, this is it. Things have to change. So now I don't do that. I do 1 course, 1 dessert. I serve it well. I love to serve it with real tablecloth, napkins on the table, setting the table properly with knives and forks. It's okay to do this, okay? It's not showing off, it's actually offering what we know best to offer, okay? So I had to change, and I love it. God's gift is for us to use what we have for his glory. Christian hospitality is not something that one culture or one class is called for. It's not the people with money. It's not the hospitable Lebanese. No, it's every one of us. It's a command of God. We are all called to be hospitable. I went online and I put in the world's most hospitable country. Just put that into Google. And guess which country came up? No, it's not the USA, and it's not UK, and it's not the European countries. It's not even Lebanon. It's actually Ethiopia. The country of Ethiopia, one of the poorest countries in our world, is the most hospitable country. And that brought to my mind an event when we lived, I think we were living here at the time. We visited Pakistan. Derek was traveling a lot during his missionary career, or our missionary career. And one of the places that he was responsible for was Southeast Asia. And so India, Pakistan was on our radar. So we went to Karachi one year, and I went with him, and we were invited to our colleagues in Karachi, into their home. And they set a table very low on the floor with beautiful food in it. They were not rich people. And as we sat having our meal, their two university sons who go to university sat there with big bamboo fans, fanning us as we sat having lunch to shoo the flies away. And the mind boggles. How many of your children or your friends' children who go to university would even contemplate being available to do something like this? A university student sitting shooing flies while we enjoyed a meal in a home that offered us incredible hospitality. This story reminds me of the story of the widow that Jesus tells in Luke 21. And he looked up and saw the rich putting their gifts into the treasury. And he saw also a certain poor widow putting in 2 mites. So he said, "Truly I say to you, that this poor widow has put in more than all. For all these out of their abundance have put in offerings for God. But she, out of her poverty, put in all the livelihood that she had." Christian hospitality is not about having a perfect home. Hospitality is about connection, not perfection. It's about relationships and making people feel welcome. Opening our homes so that some can let their hair down. It is fundamentally about making space in our lives and our homes for true presence and connection. I was talking to someone this week, and she was saying to me how many people here in Limassol, single girls, are so lonely. They would love to connect with families, with people who can invite them into their homes. Are we willing to open ourselves? Are we willing to bring these people in? If I look at us here, how many people are actually Cypriots? We're all guests in Cyprus. This is not our country. This is not our homeland. And yet it has become our homeland because we have chosen to come here. But we are all expats together, and we all need to be supporting one another. And we need to be sensitive to the Holy Spirit to be able to show us the people who need to be ministered to, who need to be invited, who need to be given hospitality. We need to be the hands and feet of Jesus. I want to read to you something called the Homemaker, and this is a version of 1 Corinthians. I don't know how many of you know it, but this has been with me for a long time, and it came to my mind as I was preparing for this today. If I live in a house of spotless beauty, with everything in its place, but have not love, I'm a housekeeper, not a homemaker. If I have time for waxing, polishing, and decorative achievements, but have not love, my children learn of cleanliness, not godliness. Love leaves the dust in search of a child's laugh. Love smiles at the tiny fingerprints on a newly washed window. Love wipes away the tears before it wipes away the spilled milk. Love picks up the child before it picks up the toys. Love is present through the trials. Love reprimands, reproves, and is responsive. Love crawls with the baby, walks with the toddler, runs with the child, and stands aside to let the youth walk into adulthood. Love is the key that opens salvation's message to a child's heart. Before I became a mother, I took glory in my house of perfection. Now I glory in God's perfection of my child. As a mother, there is much I must teach my child, but the greatest of these is love. And yes, some of us now have adult children, and we don't need to apply it to our children, but we can apply it to our guests. We can apply it to our grandchildren, because some of us are at that stage as well. The next point is hospitality is not just a gift or an optional activity. It's a command. In 1 Peter chapter 4 and verses 9 to 10, it says, "Offer hospitality to one another without grumbling." And in Romans chapter 12 and verse 13, it says, "Share with the Lord's people who are in need. Practice hospitality." I love the word practice, don't you? Because practice makes perfect. And you can't say, "I can't cook." Well, if you don't practice, you won't be able to cook. So it's not an excuse. If you want to play a musical instrument, you need to put hours of practice. If you want your child to learn to play tennis, they must put hours of practice. You know, these people you watch playing tennis, that's their life. It's what they do all day, every day. When I was in Lebanon, and I don't know, probably haven't said, I was born in Lebanon, and I'm one of 6 children, and I'm number 4. And growing up, my mother had to cook for 8 of us at home. So I remember the amounts of food that she would cook. And not only for our family, we would always have lots of other people come and go, family and friends and other people. I learned to cook from my mother, but although we helped her in the kitchen, we never actually put a meal together. We chopped vegetables, we cleaned, we washed up, we did all the things that girls would do at home, my sisters and I, but we never put a meal together. But Mum wasn't a good baker, so my brother and I used to go upstairs to my aunt's house, and she used to teach us how to bake, and that's how I learned some of the skills that I have today. But you know, when I got married back in 1979, I started experimenting with food. And like any young bride, I had lots of burnt offerings. But I persisted. I didn't give up. And Derek used to be the guinea pig. I used to try new recipes on him. I still try new recipes on him now. But I'm not afraid of that. And we need not be afraid of experimenting, of giving what we can, because it's not what you cook. It's actually the attitude that you offer it with. It can be a bowl of soup. It can be bread and butter. But it must be something that we've got to offer in our home. Christian hospitality is not only about food. It's about sharing life, and we've said that many times already. Sharing life around the table is very precious. We lived in Cyprus for 16 years, from 1989 to 2005. And during those years, we were in church leadership, and we enjoyed inviting people. Some Sundays, I would cook on a Saturday, and on Sunday morning, I would invite people from church, sometimes not knowing who it might be. So they would come to our house, And we would sit around our table, sometimes 16 of us around our square table, 16 of us sharing a meal. And we would sit there until 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And it wasn't just sharing food. It was sharing experiences. It was praying for one another. It was sharing life, talking about things that God has impressed on our hearts. This is what it's all about. The food, yes, it's good to have good food, but it's only something that brings us together. The food is only the medium that brings us together. When we lived here before also, I was involved in something called the Gourmet Ladies. And Pam, you were part of that for a while, weren't you? I don't see anybody here who was a part of it for those years that we were here. And the Gourmet Ladies started with myself and 3 other women who were good friends. One of them I knew when we lived in Seychelles. And we decided we wanted to get to know each other. And so the best forum was to actually come together over a meal. And we would plan the theme for the meal, and everybody would bring food, and people would offer to host. And I hosted many a time. And when I hosted in my own home, I had opportunity to pray. A lot of these women were what we call now pre-believers, okay? They didn't believe, they looked at our lives, they saw something different. And I prayed, I gave thanks to the food. And then sometimes when we went to their houses, they would ask me to pray. And it was just amazing. And sometimes they would talk about things around the table, and they would look at me, and that thing was not actually quite what they expected me to hear, because it wasn't probably very wholesome talk. But they would look at me, they would see that actually what they said was not what should have been said in my presence, and they would stop. So we have little influence. It might be very small, but God calls us to be salt and to be light. You know, in UK, 6 out of 10 meals are consumed in British homes are eaten in front of the television. Research has revealed that millions of families have all but abandoned the dining room and retired to a sofa to enjoy their meal. A dining table is important. If you're raising a family, it's very important. But if you're having friends round, it's important. We use our kitchen table all the time. Those of you who have been to our house know that we have a large kitchen table, and this is where we give hospitality. From the oven to the table, and we enjoy being there. It's not an atmosphere that is threatening. It's an atmosphere that brings and attracts people. And this is what we want to do in our homes. Make conversation with the people at your table, your children, if you're still young. Some of you here are still young, some of you are not married. Think about it for when you get married. The dining table is a very important piece of furniture. Ban the phones from being at the table. Talk, talk, talk. Play games, do quizzes. We used to love doing that with our boys. We used to we'd say to them, close your eyes, and then we would find something in the room, and we'd say, how many light bulbs do you think there are in this room? Or how many of this do you think there are in this room? Engage your children. Do something fun at the table. Make it fun to get it done is one of my husband's mottos in life. It's not old-fashioned. You know, a lot of people think it's old-fashioned to sit and talk. No, it's not old-fashioned. It's being family together, whether we are with our children, whether we are with our guests, whether we are with our grandchildren. It's being family, and that's what should happen. As I finish, I would like to share a couple of practical hints that I've learned along the way. Don't say to people, come and have coffee or come and have a meal. Get your phone out, if this is what you use, or get your diary out and make an appointment. On this day, come and have a meal with us. On this day, we'll come to you and have a meal. Make an appointment. You leave it wide open, in my experience, it never happens. We lived in South Africa for a few years, and the South Africans have a saying, we'll make a plan. Have you ever heard a South African say, we'll make a plan? We'll make a plan. Well, do you know that? And, you know, the plan doesn't happen. In Lebanon and in the Arab world, we say, Bukra inshallah, tomorrow, God willing. tomorrow never comes. Make a plan by putting it down on paper. That's how I like to do hospitality. Be honest with others and expect others to be honest with you. I'll tell you this story as I finish. We lived in Iran for 2 years, and it was strange years, but we enjoyed it in a sort of funny way, if you can do that in Iran. And I managed to learn Farsi, and I learned how to make carpets, which was a very good thing. And the Iranians make beautiful rice. Have you ever had Iranian rice? Iranian rice is the best. They know how to cook rice. It's a process. It's not something that you do in a pan and then you put it through the sieve and you just put it on the side and serve it. No, it's a beautiful, they make rice with vegetables. They make rice with tadik, which is the base of the rice, becomes very, very hard, and it's crunchy and it's beautiful. Then they make sweet rice for weddings and beautiful events. So that's very special. Well, they also make other foods, which Derek and I didn't like very much. And they made something called ash. Many of you had ash? Well, for some reason, ash never materialized in my life. And from Iran, we moved to the United Arab Emirates, and we were looking for a flat one day in Sharjah. And same time, another couple were looking at a flat, and she was Iranian. Her husband was Emirati, and she was his second wife, and she had a daughter. So they looked at the flat next door. We were looking at the flat this side, and we both rented, and we became neighbors. And then we both moved in. And then she was thrilled that I could speak Farsi and enjoyed chatting to her. One day she comes to the door. Hi, Fatima, how are you? And in Fatima's hands is a bowl of ash. And my face fell. Derek was in the study working. I shouted to him. I said, Derek, would you like some ash? Knowing very well that he doesn't like it. Then I turned to Fatima and I said, Fatima, I'm sorry, but I don't like ash. Fatima took her bowl of ash, turned round, and went to her flat. What do you do? I said to Derek, what shall I do now? So I said, okay, I'll sit down and write her a letter. So I sat down and I composed a letter to Fatima. And I said, Fatima, we so wanted to be good neighbors to you. And when we lived in Iran, we loved a lot of food, but we didn't like ash. And I didn't want to take your ash and throw it in the bin and say, what a lovely meal that was, thank you very much, and lie to you. Because my religion tells me, my faith tells me, let your yes be yes and your no be no. And I said, I will put this letter under your door and I will come in half an hour. So I translated it into Farsi in Google Translate and doctored it a little bit and left the English script as well. And then I went and put it under her door. And I prayed. Half an hour later, I went to her and I knocked on the door. And we went into each other's arms. And she looked at me and she said, you're a Christian, aren't you? I said, yes. She said, I'm a Muslim, you're a Christian, and you're right. You know, I could have taken that ash. I could have lied to her. I didn't want her to come every time she made ash and bring me a bowl. Did I do the right thing? I think before God, I did the right thing. And sometimes we have to make difficult choices. Sometimes you go to somebody's house and they offer you something, and with very closed mouth you say, oh, that was lovely, but you didn't really like it. Are you willing to open up and say that? Are you honest enough to do that? God calls us to be honest with one another. Even in giving hospitality, God calls us to do this. You know, from 4 decades of giving hospitality, I'm the richer for giving it. And the joy that we as a family and now as empty nesters have, far outweighs anything else. We have 5 guest books that people have written in, and they are a witness to great times of joy. It's not just what people wrote, what a lovely meal and all that, but it's the number of people who have been through our home, the number of people we've given hospitality to, the number of people who have slept in our home and had lovely holidays. God calls us to be salt and light. Everything we do before a watching world. God has called each one of us to be light. We each have a different way to express it, but the end result is, in the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. That is the end result. It's people coming to know the Lord. It's people growing in their faith because of what you have done in their lives, sharing life together with them. Glorifying our Father in heaven, may your light shine for him in whatever you do and say as you open your home and your heart to others. May you be blessed.